Welcome to the post-lunch session. I now invite Dr. Soni to introduce the speakers and chair the session.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It seems everything is going from food to food to food. We had some food for thought before that, and we had some food for the body, and now we are back in the previous condition of food for thought. It is my great privilege and honor to introduce my good friend, Godavarisha Mishra, who is going to talk to us today with specific reference to Kundakunda. He is the head of the Department of Philosophy of Madras University, and I think you will not be surprised to say that his interests are as vast as his studies in the field of philosophy. He has, as far as papers are concerned, 41 papers that he has written. He has written books on non-Western philosophical schools, on Advaita Vedanta, Buddhism, and even other schools of Indian philosophy. He's an active member of the Adyar Library and Research Center. Thank you for coming. Thank you for not hearing what I said before that. And in the Indian Philosophical Congress, he was also the Secretary General of the Indian Philosophy Congress. So, it is my pleasure. Godavarisha, thank you.
So, good afternoon to all of you. Usually when we have a class, after the lunch, we say that it is Susupti class, because everybody would be waiting for a nap. So what I would like to do, friends, is what we have been doing at the University of Madras Philosophy Department, working on Kundakunda Acharya and placing him as somebody who tried to reconcile the differences between the schools and in a way restructuring the Jaina Dharma of his times. Before I go on to speak on Kundakunda, I would like to say a few words on the concept of Dharma in Indian tradition. You know, in and through the traditional discourses on Dharma, we do not find a Swarupa Lakshana of Dharma. Dharma, there are two types of definitions for the concepts in Indian philosophy. One is Swarupa Lakshana and another is Vyavahara Lakshana. And in all the definitions that we find like in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we find like Jo vai dharmaha satyam vai tat. Like in Purva Mimamsa, we find Chodana Lakshanartho dharmaha. In Kanada, we find Yena abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhihi saha dharmaha. You know, Shankara, instead of accepting the definition given by Jaimini, who is another Mimamsaka, like Shankara, Uttara Mimamsa he was doing, he accepts the definition given by Kanada. He feels that that is more valid in the context of moral dialogue, that which has been going on. What Sundar was talking in the morning, that what Motilal says, that there is nothing called ethics in Indian philosophy. And Daya Krishna, I would like to invoke his attract his attention to the Daya Krishna saying that how there is a contradiction in his writing itself. In Motilal's writing, that he himself talks about moral dilemmas, invoking a large number of ethical perspectives from Indian tradition. So this is the scenario of Dharma, and I would like to say that Indians, in and through their traditional way of doing Dharma, have not attempted to give a Swarupa Lakshana, the direct definition of Dharma, because the word Dharma, the concept of Dharma, the term Dharma defies all types of direct definition. That is number one. Number two, and the context of Jainism, Dharma means motion. If you say Dharma in Jainism, you have to necessarily speak about the Dharma and Adharma. One is motion, another is the rest, and that is all Dharma would mean. But friends, I would like to invoke a very important concept which Jainas have invoked, which Professor was speaking in the morning. I think he is not there. So that is Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. This is a definition from Mahabharata. Professor is here. And this we may say so many things against it, make a lot of caricature about it, but in the final analysis, at the end of the day, we have to see how, from the perspective of a Kevalin, it would remain to be the best definition available, while dealing with the concept of ahimsa in a very philosophical way. That is number one. Number two, about Buddhism and Jainism. You know, these are all Shramanic religions, and yesterday somebody was asking that, all these things which we have been speaking, some student from the backside asked, can be heard by going to a psychiatric, somebody who is giving, counseling. What is the necessity of the Jaina precepts? Like, why should we go for Jaina as a religion and talk so much about it? And another question was, like, where is the secular space for Jainism? Friends, I would like to say that both Jainism and Buddhism arose in the secular space of Indian religiosity. The secularism was antidoting the Vedic way of doing religion and thinking. And the Jainism and Buddhism stood anti-Vedic, did not want to do anything with a text. A text-based thinking was not accepted by these two thinking traditions, that is Buddhism and Jainism, and there is where they have preeminence of being secular in that period of time. And there lies also the pragmatic necessity of a tradition which can do philosophizing without resorting to any text. And coming to this Buddhism and Jainism, on which now we are working, we find that there is a lot of interaction between both the schools, both the Shramanic traditions. Like, I would invoke the one text which is a dictionary, which all the Indian elites studied first as the first text, called Amara Kosha. In Amara Kosha, Amarasimha, who some people say that he was a Jaina, some others say that he was a Buddhist. But we do not know, whatever he may be, in his passage giving the synonyms of the word Buddha, he says that Buddha and Jaina are one and the same person. Like, this is a very intriguing thing. Whereas in 8th century, Shankara criticized Jainism and Buddhism as separate traditions. Shankara is very clear that this Jainism is totally different from Buddhism. He has his own way of doing things, and I would not deal with that in a very elaborate way, but I have my own reservations in dealing with, or in accepting the Shankara's view when he was criticizing Jainism. So now, coming to the Jaina philosophy, thinking, as presented by Kundakunda, I would say that Kundakunda, I will deal with the Kundakunda's period, the books he have written, the philosophy he has given. But before that, I would say that Kundakunda is one among many thinkers in Jainism who writes passages in his Samayasara and other texts, and especially in Samayasara, he writes in Arya meter. and each verse gives some philosophical idea which is the basic teachings of the Tirthankaras. And that is his great philosophy. He says that he who realizes the self, yo pasyati atmanam abadhas prishtam annaga vishesham apadesa ujjitam pasyadi jina shasanam sabbam. This is what he says. He who realizes the self as not bound, not touched, not other than anything else, steady and without any difference, understands the entire essence of all Jaina teachings. Friends, I told you, the whole tradition of teaching, philosophizing in Jaina philosophy is centered around the Kevalins and Sruta Kevalins. These two words are very important in Jaina tradition. I would like to see the parallels of these two terms in Vedanta tradition, especially Advaita tradition. When a person becomes a Jivan Mukta, there are two ways that he can live. One, without teaching, because for a Jivan Mukta, there is nobody else other than the self. So he does not see the world as he has been seeing. So he can go into Samadhi. Or he can come back, like the Plato's caveman allegory, the cave allegory of the Plato. He can come back and make others realize the world what it was. That is Sruta Kevalin. That is how. There are some more into it. I would not, just giving a parallel to this. So the whole tradition of Jainas can be understood from the angle of Kevalin and Sruta Kevalin. And Kevalins are those who are the exemplars, and Sruta Kevalins are those who are the ideologues. So I would put it in that way. So now, so whole thing, even talking about the non-violence what Professor was speaking, can be only understood and understood in a very profound way when you speak of it from that angle of Atma, from that angle of Kevalin. And in any other way of justifying it will land us in many logical and other philosophical problems. Anyway, coming to Kundakunda, I give him a date from 127 to 170 AD. Was a Jaina preceptor from the south who was known for his unique contribution to Jaina philosophical heritage. In the order of importance, he would perhaps be the third after Mahavira. You know, in Digambara tradition, they always say Mangalam, Bhagavan Viro, Mangalam, Gautamu Gani, Mangalam Kundakundaryo, Jaina Dharmastu Mangalam. That is how the tradition goes on. The Nirgrantha tradition, which Mahavira and Tirthankaras before him enunciated orally, was diversified into groups or prasthanas. I would say that, instead of telling sect and other, I would use the word prasthanas, a very profound word for the schools, each entertaining views different from the other, and thus came to a need to formalize the thinking of the preceptors. Friends, here there was a small dialogue, like exchange of emails between me and Jay. He was telling this, what is this Nirgranth? And he was telling Granth means there is no doubt at all. That's what you meant, isn't it? The doubtless. Knots, there are no knots. Okay. Doubtless, notless, that's same thing. But, 1 minute. So, but I think Granth would mean the bookless tradition. Bookless tradition, Grantha. Grantha means book. And Nirgranth means a bookless tradition. All the older traditions in the world, including the Greek, Vedic, all the even Buddhist traditions were Nirgrantha tradition. And Mahavira, being an elder contemporary of the Buddha, came in that tradition, which is why the tradition was called as Nirgrantha tradition, bookless tradition. The writings came much later. I don't have to dialogue with this. This is my view, and I think I'm not wrong, because all the older traditions, in some way, the what is the speech writing dichotomy we know in Western philosophy also. So that Nirgrantha tradition enunciated orally, the preeminence the benefits of the oral tradition was diversified into groups or prasthanas, and this is what was undertaken by Kundakunda to formalize the thinking of the preceptors. Hailing from the South Arcot district of Tamil Nadu, Kundakunda authored many seminal texts which are philosophically important and ethically gratifying. His magnum opus was, let me confine myself to my talk. So his magnum opus was Samayasara. In Samayasara you will find there is no mention about the points of difference between the two schools. Usually what the Jainas do in later literature, those who have studied the later literature will find, very easily they go into the problems whether Svetambara is right or Digambara is right. Somewhere they will put something to say that we are better than the other. And that you don't find in Samayasara at all, which speaks of unity of thinking, and this unity is pervaded in all modes of life in the world. In the understanding of the essence of the self, this is another thing which Samayasara does, lies the liberation and possibility of doing away with the bondage.